Voice in the Dark. I want to welcome you to the first episode of Voice in the Dark. On this channel, you will be listening to scary stories written by people from across the world. Some could be fiction, others may have happened. In either case, I hope to bring these stories to life through voice and to send shivers down your spine. So sit back, plug your headphones in, turn out the lights, and let your mind create the monsters within the shadows around you. I hope you enjoy. Our first story tonight comes from Reddit user SereneJaylene. Stories titled, She Always Preferred My Sister. I loved my grandma. Loved. She preferred Ellie, my little sister. She absolutely adored her. The strange fascination with Ellie always bothered me as a kid. Whenever Mom dropped us off, I'd run to Grandma with hugs, and she'd smile politely. But when it came to Ellie, she held her arms wide and took her in a warm embrace. My mom constantly scolded my grandma in that tight, strained whispering adults tend to do. As a kid, we always had the same conversation. Why doesn't she like me? Don't say that. Of course, she likes you. She loves you. Despite this, I never held a grudge against Ellie. How could I? She was my innocent and oblivious baby sister. Whenever we slept over at Grandma's place, she would sing Ellie to sleep, a sweet lullaby about pink clouds and sweet dreams. I only got a pat on the arm, a quick kiss on the forehead. Ellie didn't mind all the attention. She loved my grandma with all her heart. She begged my mom to take her to Grandma's on the weekends. We were supposed to go to my dad's place. She called her almost every day. The two had a connection like no other. From the outside looking in, it was sweet. However, from my perspective, I was beginning to think there was something wrong with me, that I was unlovable. My mom picked up the slack in that department and made sure I felt loved. She paid lots of attention to me. It wasn't until my teen years when my mom finally opened up about my grandma's love for Ellie. My mom reluctantly admitted she used to have a little sister, Elizabeth, who died at the age of 10 and looked eerily similar to Ellie. That was the only explanation my mom had for their strange connection. I was shocked. I pressed her for more information. What was her sister like? Why had she never shared this with us before? How did she die? She didn't want to upset or scare us when we were younger. Didn't know how to bring it up. Just never did. She felt like she owed me some sort of explanation for my grandmother's distance. Apparently, my Aunt Elizabeth fell while climbing a tree and broke her neck on impact. It was gruesome. I understand why my mom didn't want to share this with two little girls. According to my mom, my grandmother was never the same until Ellie was born. She joked that Ellie was Elizabeth reincarnated. She even called our grandmother Mama, the same way Elizabeth had. My mom thought this was sweet and touching, saw it as a blessing. I, on the other hand, thought it was unsettling, but very intriguing. Later that night, I thought about my childhood. Everything over the past few years made so much more sense. Of course, losing a child is hard, and watching Ellie grow up was like my grandmother's second chance with her own daughter. But she didn't have to ice me out like that. It was hard to accept. I fell asleep trying to resolve my feelings about it. The day of Ellie's 10th birthday began like all birthdays in our house. Mom wakes us up with balloons and a birthday cake for breakfast. Mom and I tickled Ellie awake, shouting birthday wishes. She woke up giggling. We gave her the balloons and cake, and my mom realized she left the matches downstairs, and said she'd be right back. While I was talking to Ellie about how she wanted to spend her day, she suddenly stopped talking and her face went pale. Immediately after, we heard Mom's strained voice from downstairs. She was talking to someone on the phone. It was about our grandmother. She had passed away. Upon receiving the information, Ellie fell silent, but I had a feeling the information was only validating something she had already known. She wouldn't talk to either of us about it. She completely shut us out, wouldn't respond to anything. The days leading up to my grandmother's funeral were filled with silence and a thick sense of dread. Ellie wasn't sleeping. I could hear her pacing at night sometimes. I figured this was her way of mourning, and I let her be. Every morning, it seemed like the circles under her eyes got darker and deeper. There was nothing I could do to reach her. The smiling 10-year-old sweetheart became a pale, blank zombie. The morning of her funeral, Ellie refused to get out of bed. She was kicking and screaming, crying that she couldn't do it. She didn't want to see my grandmother that way. We tried everything. She pleaded to stay home. My mom, exasperated, finally agreed for the sake of time and understanding. We all needed to grieve in our own ways. The funeral itself was concise and punctual, just as my grandmother had always been. The turnout was decent. I spent most of the time comforting my mom. It wasn't until they began lowering the casket that I felt a weird twinge in my stomach. I had a feeling that something was wrong, very wrong, and I wanted to rush home. On our way back, the closer we got, the stronger the feeling grew. By the time we pulled up to the house, I jumped out of the car and flew through the door expecting something on the other side. But I was greeted with silence. The house was deafeningly silent. I stood in the center of the living room, unnerved. Just as I was about to sit down, I heard a muffled voice from upstairs. Definitely not a 10-year-old girl's voice. I ran upstairs to check on Ellie. Her bedroom was at the end of the hall. As I reached the top of the stairs, my breath caught in my throat. For some reason, I felt deeply disturbed. Ellie's door was left ajar, and the lights were off. My mom called out to me, but I couldn't speak. I slowly moved towards Ellie's door, and heard a similar tune about pink clouds and sweet dreams. The hair on the back of my neck stood. The air grew cold. As I reached the end of the hall, I was sweating, terrified. I pushed the door with a finger, and there, on Ellie's bed, was a white-haired figure, rocking back and forth. My grandmother slowly turned around with a lifeless Ellie in her arms and a huge grin on her face. Her smile fell, and she held one finger up to her lips and whispered, "Shh, Elizabeth is sleeping." I let out a blood-curdling scream and woke up in a cold sweat. It was just a dream. A really fucked up dream. I bolted out of my bed to go check on Ellie and almost slammed into my mom, who was about to knock on my door. Surprised, she looked at me with tears brimming in her eyes and said, "I just got off the phone with the hospital. Your grandmother has passed away." The second story of the night comes from Reddit user GreensburgZombie, titled 6 Minutes. "A new you in just 6 minutes," Rebecca read out loud from the pamphlet in her hands. "That's right," said the man behind the do-over booth, who introduced himself as Tim or Tom. She couldn't remember which. "And that's it? 6 minutes and you're a whole different person?" "Well, there's a little bit more to it," he said. "The mental easing, erasing, and reprogramming necessarily only takes 6 minutes. For the next 48 hours or so, our technicians induce a deep, healing sleep while the logistics team sets up your new habitat, new apartment, wardrobe, temp job, or education, according to your preference, of course, and schedules a meeting with a do-over starter friend." "And what about my old life? Will I remember any of it?" "We've never had a relapse yet," Tim/Tom said, beaming. "Our starter friends are first-rate undercover tour guides to your new life. They're specially trained to keep you away from any triggering material for the first month or so. They'll introduce you, organically of course, and without blowing their cover, to a whole new suite of hobbies and experiences before taking a job across the country and gradually cutting off contact. You'll be a bit disappointed to lose such a good friend, of course, but eventually that'll fade, and you'll be left seamlessly integrated into a whole new you. You'll remember nothing of the life you left behind. We even disguise our billing by distributing it across innocuous little paycheck withholdings. It'll be line-itemed as local taxes or service and processing fees, or something like that." Rebecca turned the pamphlet over and over in her hands. "And the 6 minutes? What's that about?" "Well, and understand this is a tried and true procedure, but the fact of the matter is your brain has to be effectively turned off for the programming to take hold. The adult human brain can only function for about 6 minutes before the brain death occurs. So we have to get in and get out in the time it takes to play sympathy for the devil." Rebecca grimaced at the pamphlet and then at Tim/Tom. His big blue eyes crinkled at the corners. "Well, thank you for your time. If I may," Tom said, "could you just do one thing for me? I really need to. Just one quick thing. Can you check your purse for a little pink and purple card? Looks something like this?" Tom held up a rectangular business card with a row of black dots at the bottom. Rebecca opened her purse and flipped through her credit cards. Sure enough, she found a crinkled pink and purple card wedged inside. "Ah, now, see, you really don't have any excuse now," said Tom, taking the card from her. She noticed that 4 of the 5 black dots at the bottom of her card had been punched out. "You've earned a free do-over anyway." The last story of the night is one of my stories, and it's titled The Gas Can. Unexpectedly, the gas gauge hovered over E. Weird, I shouldn't be this low, I thought. Time to find a station. My car pushed through the dense early morning fog. A sign formed from the path ahead. The message read, "Last stop for gas for 60 miles, half mile on the right." Coincidence? I'll chalk it up to luck. A few seconds more through the soupy air, and suddenly the view opened up. Fresh paved road, a cool wind, and a green field on my left. I slowed down and peered down the road. About 400 yards out, the fog picked up just as thick, a gray cloud blocking the view just as before. To my right, a house sat in the morning paradise. An undisturbed dirt semicircle led up to the porch and back around to the road further down. It's a picturesque 2-story brick home, just perfect for a magazine cover. I feel like I've driven into a farmland snow globe surrounded by a graveyard. On the home, a sign hangs below the second-floor windows. 3 giant letters, G-A-S. Tiny windmills are drawn between the letters. The whole place looks well kept and quaint, but there are no pumps. Well, I guess they could be in the back. I turned off onto the dirt. I see a lush green field stretch beyond the back of the house into a row of healthy trees, and the fog hung above them, I parked in front of the porch and hopped out. As I walk around the hood of the car, I see no lights on inside. My boots press against the wooden stairs of the porch, thuds reverberating off the house's outer wall as I climb. A voice calls from inside. "Come on in. The gas is on the front table. Help yourself. I'll be there in a minute." Now on the porch, a screen door is shut, the inside door open, allowing view inside. Darkness. Pitch black. I can't tell any detail about the layout of the house, except for one item. In the center of the room, illuminated by an oculus on the ceiling, a small table with room for only one item on top. A 5-gallon gas can. Looked brand new. I felt uneasy. I said out loud, "Hello?" "The gas is on the front table," the voice responded. "How much for the gas?" "Help yourself." "Should I wait?" "Help yourself. I'll be there in a minute." I gripped the handle of the screen door, but paused. The hair on my body stood up. Something didn't feel right. Maybe I should drive back. But I knew it was too far. I wouldn't make it. I needed this gas. I opened the door and stepped in. With little noise and little hesitation, I drifted to the gas can. Standing under the light now, I picked up the can and made my way to the door. I pressed against the screen door and it was stuck. I pressed again. It didn't budge. I looked out through the screen door. Silently, the fog rolled over the visible road, and the dirt path quickly became enveloped. The car disappeared, and the fog stopped. A sound of squeaky wheels came from behind me. I turned around. A cart appeared under the light where the table once was. On it, a tape recorder. The play button depressed on its own. "Come on in. The gas is on the front table. Help yourself. I'll be there in a minute." The light from above was extinguished. I stood in silent darkness, gas can in hand. A low booming voice emerged from the house itself.
"Got you."
I want to thank you for listening to these stories. Thank you again to all the authors. If you're looking for more stories of this nature, or would like to see the stories read aloud from their source, check out the links in the description below. I really enjoy recording stories, and hope you continue to follow my recordings. If you would like to know when I post the next scary story recording, subscribe to this channel, and follow along with the social media platforms listed below as well. That's all for tonight. I hope you enjoyed, and I look forward to scaring you next time, very soon.